So the being was basically telling me I'm the energy of love. And so I noticed this circle and this pillar of light, and it's almost like a wheel. And I try to focus on where they're going to, and I see that it's almost like a movie screen. It's like a big movie screen, and there's little boxes in them, like tiny TV sets. But I understood that they were memories. And that's when the being or the voice tells me that this is the Akashic Records. This is where every thought and feeling is stored. And one day there will be a life review. Hello, my name is Stephen Noack. I'm a near-death experiencer. I had a transformative near-death experience at the age of 4, and that really played out through my entire life. I had a near-death experience where I was run completely over by a car, and what I remember about this experience is a blur as I left the driveway. My brother was standing on the other side of the street, and he was calling to me to come home because we were going to the mall. So I heard mall and bells go off in my mind and toys, and I raced down the driveway in between two parked cars, and there was a car coming that I didn't see. The car hits me, and I was 4 years old at the time. I was so small, I actually went underneath the vehicle. The car continued down the road for probably about another 25, 30 feet, from what I was told. And the only thing that saved me was that I was riding on a plastic tricycle called a big wheel. But it was also very low, and I was very small, and the woman was drinking at the time, and she didn't know she had a child either. So what I remember is a blur, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at myself, and my eyes roll in the back of my head, and everything fades to black. But then it opens up again. And the first thing that I recall is the sensation of sitting with someone, and I'm leaning to my side, and I can feel them. And my mind is, who is this? What happened? And my head is down at the time as I'm leaning, and I kind of have my head on their chest. And I open my eyes, and as my head is down, I catch the glimpse of hair that's almost touching the ground. It's kind of like silvery, luminescent type. And I noticed the bottom of a robe. I didn't see any feet or anything, but that's what I recall, the hair in the robe. And when I turned, I was basically going to ask whoever this was what happened. And when I turned towards them, and I expected to see a person, but it wasn't a person. It was a hooded figure of light that had no face. There was only light where their face should be. And as I turned, it was a little unexpected. So I kind of paused for a moment, and I asked them what had happened. And they said, "Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right." And I put my head down, and I'm still staring at this being's face, trying to figure out what happened somewhat. That's kind of playing in the background, but it's almost like a dream where you're trying to wake up. So as the being says, "Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right." I put my head down, I'm staring at the face, and I can feel myself being pulled. And it's almost like feels like a rubber band being stretched out. And I'm being pulled, and I'm going further and further and further. I'm going into this face, or this hood where this light is. I'm going down this kind of tunnel of light. And for a little bit, time is hard to even think about as you're experiencing something like that. But going down this tunnel of light, and then the scene just materializes in front of me, and it's golden meadows and grass and the most beautiful rivers and paths and mountains and nature scene that I've ever experienced and in my memory. And still to this day, there were flowers there that I've never seen in colors that we don't even have. So as I see this scene materialize in front of me, I'm noticing and understanding that even the colors were alive, and that these flowers were sovereign beings, and that they're choosing to give us this gift out of love of their beauty and things like that. And so there's these passing feelings that I'm understanding that these things are alive, these colors, and they're moving through everything. And at that moment, I noticed there's kind of like figures materializing, but they look kind of like you'd see a silhouette of somebody playing. Some are in the distance, some are, a little further away than others. And there's one set of figures off to my left that kind of catches my attention. And I notice it's like an old man. It's like an elderly man, what they'd be wearing, and kind of like how they'd be standing, and they're playing with a little girl. And as they're playing, I kind of sense they're far away, but they're right next to me. And they're feelings that are very hard to describe. It's like you're over there, but you're right here. And as they're playing, the little girl lets out a laugh. And this laugh just floats through the air and touches me right in the center of my chest. And at that moment, I knew instantly that everything came from this place, and that everything would go back to it, that everything came from love, and that everything would return to love, and that only love could exist there. And it was almost like it was like a code. It was like a frequency. Of course, I couldn't understand it at the time. I'm just experiencing and feeling. And later in my life, I would remember this, many years later, once I was normal again, you know. So I'm having this experience where this energy just floats through the air, touches me in my chest, and I just feel uh, everything is love. I knew pain and suffering couldn't exist there. It wasn't that it didn't, it couldn't. It couldn't even form function. So I wanted to stay there. And I expressed that I knew I was home and I wanted to stay. And that's when they said, Stephen, it's not your time yet. We have other things to show you. And then I see the whole screen just move to the side. And it was like somebody pulled away, a curtain. And I'm standing in what looks like a night sky. There's no stars, but it's not quite black. It's like a night sky. And I noticed there's these lines that start going up and down and across, like a grid pattern, like graph paper, straight up, horizontal, and then all the way across. And it's looking like a grid pattern. So that's when the voice says to me, Stephen, this is the quantum field. People experience reality as an energy with this field using their thoughts and emotions. And then I'm just kind of witnessing this, just going through it. And so that kind of fades. And that's when I see this circle, and it's almost like I'm standing above it, or I'm in like a skybox. I see this circle, and it's got a pillar of light that's starting to come down in the middle. And the voice again says to me, this is you. As you came into this world, a being made from the energy of love. In words kind of like that, you are the energy of love as you come into this incarnation, but you spend your energy to experience material reality. So the being was basically telling me I'm the energy of love, and that I will be, or people spend their energy to experience material reality. And so I noticed this circle and this pillar of light, and it's almost like a wheel. It's like a wagon wheel, if you will. And I see there's energy kind of going out from this pillar to the outer rim, and in all different places, attached in all different places. And I try to focus on where they're going to. And I see that it's almost like a movie screen. It's like a big movie screen, and there's little boxes in them, like tiny TV sets. And I understood whether it was by me just asking and receiving the information, but I understood that they were memories, and that it was energy innately. And that's when the being or the voice tells me that this is the Akashic Records. This is where every thought and feeling is stored. And one day there will be a life review. But people do not have to wait until they pass to have this. And this is what we call the process of ascension. So that went away. The next thing I noticed is I'm standing in this night sky scene again. I see something up to my left, and it's kind of lit up like those blue lines that I saw in the beginning, similar to the color of my background, but it's kind of lit up. It's up and to the left. And as I'm looking at it and getting curious about it, that's when the voice tells me this is your divine blueprint. This is the image of who you are. And then that was it for that. And there's a lot said that I would remember and not want to talk about after trying to talk about it, and really keep inside and not know what any of it meant. And it led to a lot of confusion. But later in my life, I would know what some of these things meant. So that passes. Next thing I see is a giant triangle, and it's just kind of coming towards me, and it's kind of lit up. And then I hear the voice say, this is Heavenly Father, this is Divine Mother, and this is Holy Son. You will make these three one. And that's it. And that kind of fades. And then before you know it, I'm waking up with toys. And as I woke up, the first thing out of my mind is, or out of my mouth, you know, what I'm thinking is what happened. What I'm asking is what happened. And my mind is unable to accept that it was an accident. Like it felt, no, I'm like, no, something happened. Something different happened. It didn't feel right. So it took about 7 years. Like I always had the emotions when I thought about the event, but it was hard to place anything behind it. Like I knew something had happened for about 7 years. And then at the age of 11, that's when I started to have the first memories come back in, sitting with this being, speaking, didn't know what we spoke about yet. That would start to come back probably from the ages of like 11 to like 20. It would just start to come in. I tried to talk about it with people. It either made me feel awkward or they didn't really care. So I learned really quickly to, okay, this is just keep it to yourself. And the way I saw it was a memory of something that happened in the past. I don't need to talk about it. It's over and done with. And I saw the results of trying. So these memories come back. It's a small confirmation. It's a small win for me. I assume, okay, yeah, something did happen. I knew it happened. But what did it all mean? I didn't know. You know, I went through my life. I sunk into the human being. I was not only run over by a car, crashed motorcycles, flipped a car over at 75 miles an hour 5 times. A lot of really close calls that back then were unexplainable, but now I understand. So I went through a lot of things to accumulate not only the physical pain, but then addictions to add to that, whether it was alcohol or prescription medication to calm the pain in my body. So I was in pretty rough shape. I didn't want to be here for quite a few years. And then that's when I'm going to have surgery. At this time, I'm just a regular manager at a video game store, well-known video game store. I'm working. I'm trying to keep my family together. Things like that. You're just dealing with everyday life. I'm really a skeptic almost at this point. I'm a healthy skeptic because what happened to me at 4, like, okay, all this wild stuff. And then all the suffering afterwards. I'm like, okay, maybe there is a God. And if there is, he probably doesn't like me. And that was my outlook on life, and that everything was negative. So at this time, I'm going to have surgery to repair some scar tissue in my elbow. Um, it's about 2008. It's like 33 years later after what had happened to me at 4. Uh, really in a dark place at this time. So I'm going to have surgery. I'm in there. I'm sitting down. I don't have any medication yet or anything. And all of a sudden, I'm overwhelmed with this panic where I'm like, I got to get out of here. I don't know why, but I need to leave, and I am leaving. And it was just this feeling that I had never experienced before in my life. I never had a panic attack. I was not an anxious person. Um, but for some reason, this energy was like in control. I was like, I got to go. And then at that very moment, it was like somebody hit a light switch. And I felt this energy start at my feet, and it goes all the way up my body, and it surrounds me in this warm, comforting, weighted blanket type feeling. And then I sat back down because I was literally in the motion of getting up to leave. I went back down, and I was like, everything's going to be all right. And then I heard the voice once again that I heard at 4 say the very same words. Right after I said, everything's going to be all right, I heard, Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be okay. And it was right there that I just lost it. It was like something in my mind broke, because all of a sudden I had all these visions, and they were going so fast. It was like somebody hit rewind on a tape reel, and just these emotions coming up and these energies with them. Um, that calmed down. I went and got the surgery. I thought it was very strange, and I thought on it and thought on it and thought on it. Um, but I instantly recognized the voice and what they said. And all of a sudden it became real. It was real in my world. It wasn't just some distant memory of something that happened. So that really challenged my reality, and that was just the start. A few days later, I started to notice these balls of light in my room. There's like one in the corner, and I'm like, what is that? I don't have a lamp there. I'm going through the motions, right? Am I crazy? I don't have a lamp there. It's not a reflection. It's an actual physical 3-dimensional ball of light, the soft bluish glow. And it would stay there for a little bit, and it would move slightly. And then eventually it'd be gone. This went on for a little bit. I, at this time, like I said, I was working a normal job. I'm at work. I start to hear like thoughts in my mind. I don't know where they're coming from, but it's just like the voices of people. And slowly this progressed to where I would hand someone would purchase something, and I would hand them what they purchased, and I would hear them respond to me before I would ask them if they wanted a bag. And as simple as it sounds, that's how I started to figure out what was happening. Um, and then that slowly turned into hunger. And then I knew, some of my customers, I knew my employees, and I would eat, and I'd be perfectly full. I would have an employee or someone walk in, and I would get gut-wrenchingly hungry, like I'd never ate a thing. And I would ask them eventually, after trying to figure out myself and what's happening, are you hungry? And they're like, yeah, I'm really hungry. And so I started to put the pieces together, um, that, okay, maybe I'm just picking up something. And I wasn't leaning into it yet. Like, all right, something's happening. I'm just like, okay, that's a little strange. So I'm standing at work, and I'm stacking the games, and I'm doing marketing. And all of a sudden I feel this rush of energy come through me. And it was like I spontaneously laugh. 5 minutes later, I spontaneously start crying. And all these different emotions that were just moving through me at like super speed. And I wasn't thinking about anything. And that's what was really alarming. Uh, my assistant manager came up to me, and he said, man, you're bright red like a lobster. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And So I went back to the doctor and I actually asked him what happened to me. What'd you do to me? And I probably looked crazy at the time. Um, Went home from that. A few days later, I start to experience noticing things moving out of my peripheral vision, and they're just moving constantly back and forth. This grows. Like at first, I'm like, okay, I'm seeing energy. All right, whatever. Then it grows into where I'm seeing full silhouettes. And I'm like, these are people or something. I'm like, what am I being haunted? And I'm literally waking up to all this stuff around me. Um, I notice some are smokier, some are darker, some are lighter. And then eventually I start telling them to leave. I start interacting with them. Some weren't so nice. Some were human. Some were entities that were literally from the addictions and the things that I had experienced. The trauma really is what they want. They want that cellular memory that's still held in their body from trauma. So as I'm seeing these, I'm engaging with them. I'm thinking I'm being haunted, leave. They're telling me we're going to drag you to hell. You're no good. You're a POS. Um, a lot of other horrible things. Eventually, it got to the point where I couldn't shut the communication off. And I would feel spasms in the side of my head as I was trying to go to sleep. My brain waves would change. And that's when the communication would start. And it took a long time to kind of figure that out. But what had happened was, and I was becoming very aware that there was some type of harvesting or some type of war for our quantum energy. And I was starting to get into, okay, I'm getting these feelings or these knowings um, about these quantum things. I was touching things and I would know how to take it apart, put it back together. I'd never seen it before in my life. And I didn't know how I knew. And so part of it was thinking you're crazy. And so as I'm walking through this, um, that's when things start to ramp up a little bit at work. Um, I'm having trouble processing and being in reality while I'm experiencing what I am. I have this woman fall down outside my store, and she's an elderly woman, and she hit the cement. She was in a lot of pain. I was the first one to see it. So I get out there. Um, Someone comes out from next door. I tell them, call somebody. They go to call somebody, and she was in obvious pain. She was expressing that, groaning in pain. And so that made me put my hand on her back, and I told her everything's going to be okay. And then about 3 seconds later, she looked at me and she said, I'm all warm and I don't have any pain. And then I felt the warm kind of go up my arm. The EMTs came and I went back to work, and I was like, man, that was really strange. And so now these things are starting to add up a little bit. And there's other strange things happening during that time period. I went to the gas station. This was one day on lunch to get gas, and I'm standing in line, and there's a man and his son, and the son gets out of line, and he grabs a peanut butter cup, and he turns to his dad and he says, can I have this? Dad says, yeah. He held it up, showed it to him, and then he does the same exact thing, but he only gets one. He didn't say he could have another one. He's like, can I have this? Yeah. And I'm like, that was very odd. And I went and paid for my stuff. I left the gas station. I started up my car. They're talking to a woman. The radio was on. She had just won a radio contest. They're laughing about the answer, discussing whatever movie it was from. And all of a sudden, the phone is ringing on the radio, and it's the woman. And they're asking her the question for this contest that I just heard 5 seconds ago. And I was like, I know this. I just heard it. It just happened. So that was the day I left work and I started to go to churches. So I'm having these apparition things. I'm feeling all these energies. I'm waking up now. I'm having time slips or something, some missing time. So I go to these churches, not a lot of answers. I remember some doors were locked and I was crying. All of a sudden, I start to get books and start reading, and I start changing. And my family's like, "What's going on?" You know. And I that's when again I tried to talk to my partner at the time, and there wasn't much space to be held for me in that area. It was, go see a shrink, this and that. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I don't need a shrink. I need somebody to listen. And that was it at the time. So thinking I'm being haunted, um, that's when I'm driving home one day, beating myself up very hard on myself for all the things that are going wrong and how I can't hold things together, and thinking I'm crazy or am I not? And I got nobody to talk to. That's when I hear a voice off to my right. And I was hearing a lot of different mixed in human voices, non-human at the time. So I'm trying to keep things away and just function. So I hear this voice to my right, and the voice starts telling me how beautiful I am, how many people love me, um, all the beautiful things that I've shared with people, and just reminding me of all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that sounds very different. And it was a different tone. It wasn't whispery like human spirits sometimes. It was very, very solid and very loving. And at this moment, I say, "Who are you?" And the voice says, "Very important to know, my parents never brought me to church. I have no religious context to draw on or anything." That's when the voice says, "I am." And my response is, "Yeah, I am who?" And the voice says a second time, "I am." And then my response is, "I heard you the first time. I am who?" Literally, this is the exchange we're having. And on the third one, same exact thing, "I am." And it was like something happened to me that I still can't explain or even understand. It was like, again, the tape reel with the visions, except I started to see every single memory I ever had in my life just flying through me, and feel every emotion that I ever had. It was like they were in reverse at the same time, but separately. It was like bing, 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 bing. I was experiencing them at the same time in two different places. And instantly I had to pull the car over, and I just started crying, and I lost it. And it was by reflex. It wasn't because I was thinking of anything or feeling guilty. And that was the hardest I had ever cried in my life. So that started really me devoting more time to searching for what was happening for me or to me. Um, I remember kneeling down at a cross. Now, I never believed in past lives, never believed in aliens, never believed in God. I thought they were all possible, but I never had that fervent belief. So I'm kneeling down at a cross, praying, asking what's happening. All of a sudden, to my family, I'm getting these crosses, I'm reading the Bible. Um, so, and I'm starting to talk about quantum stuff too. I'm starting to kind of get a notion of where the root of things are coming from. And so I looked a little crazy. So I'm kneeling down at the cross, crying, begging, what's happening to me, because my world's falling apart. And at that moment, I have a vision. Show me what's happening or why this is happening. I have a vision of, it's me. I'm looking outside of my eyes. I look down. I could see my feet. I could see I'm wearing a brown tunic. It's kind of tied around the waist. I could see I'm wearing sandals, and I'm walking on this road, and everything is crystal clear. I mean, more clear than here. And that was another big component of that place I went to. It was so vibrant and clear. It feels like it was more real than our world. And so that echoed some of that, my visit to that other place. So it was so real and vibrant. I look to my left, I see two rivers. I look to my right, I see a river. And I'm walking on this road that's kind of in between them, and they converge in the middle. And so the vision ends. And I'm like, wow, that was really helpful. I get a notion, okay, look that up, three rivers coming into one. And immediately, Euphrates River, parting of the Red Sea. And I'm like, well, don't know who I was, but I must have been there. And that's where these feelings are coming from. This thirst for God, this thirst for that feeling that was awakening within me that felt like a sun. And so that's the I am experience. I'm still dealing with these apparitions and these things that are bothering me. And during that time, that's when I feel and hear. I mean, I felt the whole pressure of the room change. This energy come into my room in the corner of the room and state that they're the Galactic Federation of Light, that they're Arcturians from the Divine Council of Nine, and that they're here to help me upgrade because I'm going to help humanity upgrade and evolve as a species. And I'm like, and then they tell me I'm in charge of a grid that's kind of like going to help humanity's consciousness advance as a whole, and that I have a personal responsibility to keep my frequency clear to power this grid. And I'm like, I'm eating Cheerios at the time, and I'm just like, all right, dude, just let me eat my Cheerios. You can go. I don't want anything to do with it. That was my first response. They left. I looked up the information, had never heard of any of it in my life. And I start finding website after website after website. And I'm like, well, maybe there's something to this. A little time goes on. They come back again. I listen a little more. They start teaching me how to match my thoughts with my intent, or my thoughts with my feelings, and then my thoughts and my feelings with my actions. So they're walking me through embodying truth. And they're also telling me that I'm a divine instrument that's out of tune, and that I'm basically playing some music that's out of tune. And a lot of times they would give me visions, they would give me diagrams, they would give me things to see and understand. And they taught me that I was basically a biological computer, that I had a hard drive and an operating system that would run programs from my subconscious cellular memory. And they were also teaching me how to rewire and address certain thoughts, feelings, physical pain, by speaking to them. And so during this time, as they're coming back and they're starting to teach me, I'm starting to feel better. The pain that I had, that I needed all this medication for just to function and go to work, is going away. And there's one night I'm sitting outside of my yard, and I feel myself getting lifted, and I'm lifted up, and I'm out of my body. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have any pain. I can't even feel the chair I'm touching. And then that's when these other beings contact me, who say they were the Sidriel. And I had to run this by a lot of people to even find somebody who heard this before, this name. And that's when they start talking to me again and telling me I'm a biological computer, and that I'm an energy, the energy of love, playing a character. And that it was time to make the three into one. And that's where I start picking up these things that are correlating with my NDE. And their three into one, the way they explained it, was heaven, earth, and the sun. And that they were also aspects of myself with positive and negative polarity. And so at this time, I'm out of my body. I'm feeling no pain. You know, they're telling me basically that I need to reprogram my hard drive, my subconscious, and that I need to start speaking to these energies, and also rewiring any pain neurotransmission that was in my body through the torus field of my heart. And they tell me at this time that we all have a crystal in our third eye, that there's a line of energy going down to our heart, and it acts as a frequency oscillator where I can use it to create, but also transform energies. And so by moving all of whatever wasn't love back into the heart space, this would kind of activate and bring me online. So they were walking me and teaching me how to create a 0 point field by making the positive and the negative one within myself, Um, and kind of getting me out of the matrix. And the way they explained it was you're an energy playing a character, and your body is like a battery with positive and negative. You're moving through creation, your body is like a battery, but you're being short-circuited by trauma out into the past, out into the future with fear or worry. This is draining your battery or your consciousness potential before you can expand and connect to higher realms. Not only that, before you can expand to embody the energy that will allow your body to heal. So as they're walking me through this, like cosmic babysitters, basically, I'm very reluctant, I'm very resistant, but I'm witnessing as they're teaching me these moments where my body would be in heaven and I felt no pain. And slowly I understood by these exchanges. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in heaven when this is happening. So I can go there, and before my life ends, I can go into heaven now. I don't have to wait. And so that started that lifelong pursuit. And they taught me about not only shifting the polarity in my cells, how to reprogram my body to heal, but how to make past, present, and future one, so that my energy was no longer in the past looking for emotions and things there that I already had, and no longer in the future worried about the future looking for something that I already have. And a lot of it was identity. And then that's when they brought up the divine blueprint again. They basically told me you need to reconnect to your divine blueprint by believing you are this and then knowing you are this. And they were walking me through, kind of bringing the light down into my head, down into my heart, and then seeing what it does to my emotions and my shadow and my ego. And then eventually, when I was ready, moving that down into truth. And the truth was that I was making my past, present, and future one, so that I would have my free will to move through my emotions, meaning move through my realities, which we're going to experience through our emotions. And first I had to hit that neutral point. I had to find my 0 point field. And that was by grounding myself in the maximum ground state, which is a direct current. And they were teaching me that most people are on this linear current where it's very easy to polarize them out of the present moment. And they were teaching me you want to hold all of your energy in the present moment, not only from this life, but from all your other lives. And so that started my journey of calling everything into the moment of now with gratitude, love, and forgiveness, and then reclaiming my identity to be my divine blueprint, the image of God I was made in. That's what I identify as. I'm an energy that came from this image that's moving through creation. As long as my polarity's not out of whack and the world's not able to trigger me and polarize me, if I'm grounded strong enough in this identity that's above the world, then I have my potential. Then I have access to a lot more of me than I would if I were trading myself away for approval, validation. So they're walking me through reconnecting the divine masculine, divine feminine, father, mother, son. I start to have this energy happening, and it feels like I have a sun in my center. And I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks. Eventually, one of the times, back to the apparitions, the Arcturians returned, and they straight up told me, this isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. And it was like tough love. It was like, listen, man, you're the only one to blame for what you created. And that started that real journey of, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired of myself in a way. And the target instantly became anything that wasn't love. And I understood that I was here to have a love story with creation itself, with the energy of love itself, and that everything else would play out fine from there. And that started that cultivating. And that's what they were teaching me. They were teaching me how to keep my energy in the present moment with a 0 point field, not be polarized out so that my battery gets drained and my energy gets taken. But also to kind of walk walk in my authenticity. No matter what it felt like to be authentic to other people, I had to honor my thoughts, my emotions, um, and the embodiments they would create. And I went on this journey of, with their guidance, calling all of my multidimensional energy into the moment of now, everything through the Christ, because I understood there was a singularity happening. And as I was doing these things, I no longer felt like I needed to go into the past for anything. My system wasn't triggered by it. My system wasn't worried about the future. So I'm seeing the real world effects of how it healed the pain in my body, the mystery ailments nobody could figure out, the degenerated discs, and whatever it may be. I was having no pain when I was in that feeling that I started to experience again at 30, 33 years later. Make me do the math on that. I might have been 40 at the time. Um, and then slowly that progressed to where it started to pour out on people, as I cultivated and really focused on purifying any part of myself that wasn't love. And with their guidance, understanding, I could go to that Christ to do that. I could go to that universal love and my higher self to give and get any forgiveness that I would ever seek, because everybody was connected there. And I started to see that connection in everybody. During this time, I left my job. I started a new one doing dementia and Alzheimer's care. And it was during then I had some really, really huge breakthroughs. And I understand why they say, put yourself in service, honest service. For once, I was able to witness my character when nobody else was around to have an opinion. Here's a person who cannot help themselves. Who am I in that moment? And that started to really build that knowing of that relationship where, wait a minute, that's creator. Each elderly person that I was with, your creator, your creator, your creator. I'm having a relationship with creator. It's not so much about the characters. And then that's when I really understood that oneness. Um, Eventually, I would leave that job uh, and start to help people. And that really just snowballed, like, hey, maybe I think I can help this person. Let me try. And tens turned into hundreds, turned into thousands probably now, um, where I help people not only connect to themselves, but to the Trinity, which aligns their mind and their heart and their body, and have the realization that they already are whole, that they already are loved, and they need to allow their mind and their body to catch up. But I'm able to work with people no matter the distance through quantum entanglement. I can help them to reprogram their cellular memory, their body to heal, release certain blocks. But it was something that happened, and I really started to look into healing to figure out what was happening to me. And that's been most of the journey. All these supernatural things happening and what is going on. Um, these visitations, these moments where I would be leaving work and I'm beating myself up. And for some reason, I don't know why, I go drive to a river and I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, God, I'm here. What do you want from me? And then I go back to the car, no answer. I go back to the car, start the car. And the very first line of the song is, I kid you not, going down to the river to pray. And I go, pray, yay, yay. And I'm like, all right, so I'm supposed to be worshiping out here. And that really changed a lot of things, all these events. I started leaving work, going right to nature, breathing, connecting, stating, and wanting to be all of creation, because this helps my nervous system really expand out of anything when I'm not giving my identity away. So it started that journey of identity. Um, and yeah, like I said, I've seen amazing, beautiful things by people reconnecting to that circuit of life force energy. And I believe I saw things and can do things that anybody can do. It's just, it has to be done with the right intent, a matter of gnosis, um, and cultivation of who you are as a genuine character. That's really important, that I don't give my identity away. And so, to back up very, very a little bit, the Arcturians teach me this is happening. through you, not to you, and that you're a divine instrument that's out of tune. You need to match yourself. During this period, they're visiting me. I'm having these really vivid dreams of being on a ship. I have no hair. I have a slick white suit. And it was only during that time when they were really close in contact with me. I'd be in different parts of the ship, different nights, sometimes weeks apart. I'd be in a different area wearing the same thing. Um, I would wake up covered in sweat. And then I began having memories of programming some of this experience and logging in to the experience. And that really started to help give me the realization that I was an energy playing a character in a quantum theater. And that, yeah, my polarity was really messed up because I carried a lot of negative trauma, charge in my cellular memory. So it was a matter of kind of releasing that and then grounding myself strong enough um, into my divine blueprint to where I couldn't be knocked out of my character again. So it was a process. It was a process of like not having anybody to talk to, thinking you're crazy. You're scared that the people who are close to you and love you, who are supposed to be there for you, are going to look at you and push you away. So eventually I got to the point where I was like, forget everybody. And I was like, I knew I needed to follow whatever was happening because it was like having a compass in my chest. Slowly, I was able to discern a lot of these energies around me. These silhouettes were entities. Some were my own projections. Some were human spirits. But that it was my energy that I was seeing for the large part and my energy that I could correct. But then a lot of people had these, but I was just seeing it. I was seeing all these wounded parts of myself that never got the love and the acknowledgement they deserve. So that's a daily practice for me. Love, acknowledgement, gratitude. And I look at myself more like a device now, where I'm going to store and process data. I want to do that in a healthy way through the field of my heart, through this magnetic field. Kind of how they taught me, because that got me into that healing space. And where I'm able to now help others with their pain and their trauma. I've had clients call me and be like, hey, man, I wasn't triggered. I don't know what to do. And I kind of laughed at that one. Of course, I walked him through it, but he didn't know how to act because his system was so used to acting kind of triggered and polarized. You can't be polarized when you begin to cleanse out the cellular memory in your body by acknowledging it, moving it into the field of your heart. And it's just kind of where you're placing it, because the upgrade that we're receiving as beings is an upgrade in storage and processing. Now I can store and process everything through my heart intuitively. I don't need to hold on to it in my body or in my mind. But it really is a matter of connecting the mind, the heart, and the gut with truth. So that was really what they walked me through, and some ego deaths along the way. But I would see the energies all the time, feel them, hear them. Still to this day, they'll be like, Stephen, go outside. If I've been working too long inside. And of course, I'll listen because I know my energy needs to feel it. And but people need to understand that you're here to feel all of your emotions, but not become attached to them. You're the one feeling them, but you're not the emotions themselves. And no good song could be played with just high notes. It's got to be high and low. You need the contrast. Otherwise, you wouldn't even know the experience is real. And so, yeah, night and day from who I used to be. And now I work with people to reprogram their body over any distance. We all connect to the same love and the same energy because we are that energy. And so it was a really law of oneness moments in little drops until I had enough to where I could put the puzzle together, move on to help people. I left my other job and now I do this full time. You can contact me through trinityquantumhealth.com. Always best to send me an email. You can like my Facebook page. It's Trinity Healing.